Thank you, folks, and welcome to CSIS and to the Transnational Threats Project. My name is Tom Sanderson. I direct the Transnational Threats Project, and I'm joined here with my team, which includes my Deputy Director, Caleb Johnson, Maria Galperin, who is our research assistant. She may have stepped out of the room. Debbie Stroman, Nikita Mann, and Hannah Werman. First, let me point out the emergency exits. I'm not sure, Caleb, is this one? I don't think it is, actually. It doesn't have the sign above it. So out the two main doorways here, and then out through the lobby that you came in, but you can also take a left for another emergency exit. And then to the right of the elevators is a third emergency exit. A little bit about the Transnational Threats Project. We have been in business for 25 years and have completed field work in scores of countries. We investigate terrorism, insurgency, and criminal networks through intense field work, and we've conducted that across maybe 60, 65 countries, where we engage a full spectrum of sources. That includes insurgents, terrorists, traffickers, organized crime figures, refugees, migrants, NGO and human rights workers, foreign service officers, journalists, academics, and then the full suite of host nation security services. Generally 30 to 40 meetings in a particular place. We take that information, put it into a briefing. We come back and we put that in front of policymakers, war fighters, the intelligence community and law enforcement, the private sector, the media, and the general public, which is one of our most important audiences. Congress also among those audiences. The TNT project just completed, in cooperation with our Africa program, a study on militancy across the African Sahel region. That included fieldwork in Mali, Senegal, Nigeria, and Niger. And later this year, we will complete, in cooperation with our Middle East program, a foreign fighter study looking at Tunisia, which has already been completed by Margot and Haim. Margot is here with us today. And a look at Turkey as well, and a look at foreign fighters and their role in history. Coming up in probably about a month, we will launch two new projects. One that's already started in a soft launch, and that is to look at several elements of the instability taking place in Libya today. And that, of course, brings us to our discussion here. But we will also cover a study looking at Russia and in Central Asia and the fighters that are coming and going from these regions, the impact they have on the neighbors, other elements of the jihadi Salafi phenomenon, and what we should be doing and hope to be doing in response to all of that. As we all know, we're living in very intense times and very difficult times, especially in Europe. In Europe, they're dealing with the impending exit of the British from the EU. Part of the context in which that is happening, of course, are the terrorist attacks that we've seen for now about 2 years. For many years before that, but since January of 2015, we've seen a very significant string of attacks in places like France, Belgium, and Germany. Add to that the millions of migrants that have been seeking refuge in Europe amidst a rise of populism, and you have a very intense atmosphere. And only 200 miles from the European Union in North Africa, we're witnessing the ongoing convulsions of the post-Arab Spring era. Tunisia and Egypt are beset with economic and security problems, while in between them sits Libya with its ongoing chaos and violence. The violence and refugee flows across the Mediterranean play prominently in the discussion with the EU's southern neighborhood policy. That neighborhood includes Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Egypt, Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, and Syria. As you all know, individual EU governments hold the presidency of the Union for a period of 6 months. And in only 10 weeks, Malta will assume this role at one of the most critical and difficult periods in the history of the European Union. Here with us today to discuss these important issues is Dr. Ian Borg, who is Malta's Parliamentary Secretary for the EU Presidency in 2017. Also with us, but not with a formal speaking role, is Ambassador Pierre Clive Ajus, the ambassador from Malta to the United States, who I count as a new friend and a great partner here with us at CSIS. I think you all have Dr. Borg's bio in front of you, so let's jump into the conversation. An intense 6 months ahead of you, only 10 weeks away. I know that's probably on your mind quite a bit, but we'd love to hear from you about the Southern Neighborhood policy, given the volatility of the Southern Neighborhood, your impressions on counterterrorism cooperation as Europe continues to face attacks, and a number of other issues, including migration and refugee policy. Thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you for the invitation, Mr. Sanderson, and I thank you all for being here with us. like you rightly pointed out, in the European Union political process, one of the institutions, the Council of Ministers, has a rotating presidency which changes every 6 months. The Council of Ministers, together with the European Parliament, they are both co-legislators. However, it's the European Commission which tables proposals to this effect. And therefore, basically, all the three institutions follow up the political direction given by the fourth European institution, that is the European Council, where all the heads of governments and states sit under the presidency at the moment of President Donald Tusk. Yes, this will be the first time after 12 years of membership when the smallest member state, Malta, very humble and modest nation, will preside over the Council of Ministers. It's a particular time. It's no doubts that the political environment we are living in Europe, perhaps even beyond our continent, is a particular one, especially when noticing that one of the largest member states, the United Kingdom, democratically decided to leave this project. And therefore, this brings us at a very particular juncture where, whilst trying to remain focused and push forward the legislative packages we have in front of us, because our citizens are still interested to move forward with the EU 27. They still want us to legislate for a more secure Europe. They still want us to legislate for a more competitive continent. They still want us to legislate for benefiting more out of the single market, the digital agenda, and all the other important dossiers we have with the internal market. Our citizens still demand for a more pragmatic and reasonable solutions to the migration crisis. We still have other member states which are coming out of the financial crisis we experienced in the past years. And at the same time, we have to start negotiating the exit of the United Kingdom. Our neighborhood is what it is, and that is something which I'm sure that we will discuss later on during this meeting. That is also why last year the European Commission decided to embark on the revision of the neighborhood policy. Since its enactment back in 2004, the policy envisaged that we will have a ring of friends, but in reality today, 10, 12 years after that, we have a ring of fire, starting from Ukraine, Russia, Syria, but not least Libya, which is just 40 minutes away from Malta. So our efforts also when it comes to the particular instruments, financial instruments, which will be reviewed under our presidency, the European Neighbourhood Policy instruments, amongst other issues. Our citizens are no longer feeling safe. It's not a secret, especially after Brussels, Paris, and Nice attacks, and therefore that is also why today the European Union has its own Commissioner for Security Union, and therefore being proactive and putting the security issue on top of our agenda. And also, we are only a few days away from the Commission's proposals dealing with the terrorist financing package, which we can discuss also during our meeting. holding the rotating presidency of the Council of Ministers does not mean that we will reinvent the wheel. We will not do so. It does not mean that it's up to us to decide whatever we want to discuss or to legislate upon, but there is a whole political process. Definitely what our heads of governments agreed in the Bratislava meeting, in the Bratislava summit last September, and also the speech by President Juncker, President of the European Commission, on the State of the Union and the roadmap presented in Bratislava definitely indicates some tangible results which our presidency, together with the other institutions, can achieve in those particular 6 months. Areas of priorities for the Maltese government now, I mean, whilst ensuring that as a presidency you must act as an honest broker, try to reach an agreement between the 28 governments around the table of the Council. Of course, we still do have our own priorities. Migration is one of them. We have been dealing with this challenge for the last 10 years, most of the time on our own, together with Italy and Greece. However, in the last 2 years, migration is on top of the European politics agenda, and also we witnessed how, for the first time, the European Commission was expedite enough to put on the table the migration agenda, which we will definitely, as a presidency, try to push forward as much as possible and conclude as much dossiers as possible with the European Parliament and adopt those pieces of legislation. The foreign policy, like we were discussing briefly before the start of this meeting, Tom, it's not the competence of the rotating presidency, because since the Lisbon Treaty, it's the EAS and therefore the High Rep under the leadership of Madame Mogherini, whereby our Minister of Foreign Affairs will definitely be supportive and cooperative, sitting next to the chair, and try to assist as much as possible in this particular area. An area which definitely needs some reassessment. Whilst I was referring to the neighborhood policy and ring of fire we have in our neighborhood, I cannot ignore the particularity of Libya. Libya was always a very close nation to the Maltese people. We are all sad and disappointed that today in Libya we still do not have that opportunity to discuss and promote opportunities in our region, because the Mediterranean region is not about conflicts. It's not only about conflicts. It's not only about a migration crisis. It's not only about terrorism. But we believe that in the Mediterranean region we have a lot of opportunities. The maritime aspect. If we are discussing in the Council proposals coming from the Commission when it comes to the energy union. I mean, the energy union, it's not only about sourcing from the east, but we also would like to cooperate more with the south. But of course, you need to have a government which you can speak to, a government which is politically stable, and this is something which still we don't have in Libya today. And of course, we are more than willing to give our full support, especially to the UN Special Envoy, Mr. Kobler, and all those trying to assist in order to achieve the Libyan political agreement, which is the soul the sole way forward for Libya. We don't have to underestimate the fact that whilst there was this, or there is still this political instability in Libya, it resulted in a very fertile land for extremists and terroristic entities, and hence Daesh, not only from Sirte to the coastline, but also to the south, and this does not help, of course, the political stability there. This, of course, impinges also on the other issues. I refer to migration. After the June 2016, this year's June's European Council decision to also set up migration compacts, we are witnessing improvements when it comes to Mali, to Niger, but of course, when it comes to Libya, there's still a lot to be done because we always have the same problem: with whom to talk to, with whom to follow up on decisions. So that is something which really concerns us as a nation, but also as a European Union. Other areas which perhaps are not of particular interest to today's subject, which we will definitely promote during our presidency, will be the completion of the single market. We believe that the single market is the biggest asset of the European Union. No wonder that whilst we are discussing the Brexit issue, it tends to be a whole debate whether the UK can access the single market, and in return, of course, we would like to see the whole full observation and respect to the 4 freedoms, including the freedom of movement to the UK. For our young ones, would like to study, would like to live, would like to work in the United Kingdom, and therefore the completion of the single market. We still have some important dossiers on the table to legislate when it comes to also the digital agenda, removal of barriers there. Whilst acknowledging that some economies are doing well in the European Union, Malta is one of them. We just had 6% economic growth, with the lowest youth unemployment rate ever. We still want to invest a lot in the youth initiative to ensure that all our young people are either in employment, in training, or in education, and also the social inclusion. We still have a relatively large amount of European citizens living in poverty. And this is also another area which we will prioritize during those 6 months. I tried to touch upon most of the areas which we will definitely follow up now into more depth, especially also according to the questions we will have.
Great. Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Borg. You raise a lot of different topics, and again, Malta takes over the EU presidency at an incredible time. I mean, just a huge number of pressures, again, from migration and refugees to the British exit to what's happening in the southern neighborhood, and of course, with from our perspective, with terrorism across Europe. Malta has a unique geography, as you said, just 40 minutes or so from Libya, 220 miles, I think it is. Sicily is around 375 miles, just north of you. But Malta is the one that sits closest. If you could shut that off, great, thanks. I'm wondering if you can provide us with your perspective on what's happening in Libya with the government of national accord, with Daesh, with General Haftar. Your perspective on how you see things progressing or not progressing as we move into the new year. I know that's a big topic, and no one has the answer to that, but you have unique perspective being that close to Libya and having those linkages, commercial, cultural, and otherwise. And so a few comments on what you think needs to happen would be very helpful.
Well, that's indeed a difficult question to answer. As I said in my introduction, the political instability is impinging on all the other aspects. Libya used to to be, I mean, also in some particular sectors, for instance, having a high-level health services for the rest of Africa, something which today, again, because of political instability, cannot offer. When it comes to trade, we just received a German-Libyan trade delegation in Malta, and there again, I mean, they were of course raising their concerns that most of their business activity is basically stopped, and they really would like to have someone on the other side of the coin to relate with, to discuss about expanding and initiating once again their business activity. But also, and especially when it comes to security threats they are experiencing. Of course, we know that the previous regime and the governmental parties and political system was not the ideal one. However, I think that the international community still regrets and of course is right to do so, the fact that we left a vacuum the day after Colonel Gaddafi was killed. Basically because we were not, when I say we, it's the international community now, we were not there assisting our Libyan friends to set up a democratically and institutional government. We were not there to assist our Libyan friends to have proper constitution, proper elections, and therefore this is the result we have today. The fact that now we have a GNA, the fact that now we have also a special envoy to the UN, which is doing a sterling job on the ground, is a positive step in the right direction. It's also a positive thing that now we have ministers in Tripoli which are able to function and able to go to their office, to their ministries. However, we do not underestimate the conflict, the internal conflict the Libyan government has, and therefore that is why we believe that the international community needs to continue support towards the LPA in order to try and brokerage a better government which can start discuss with the rest of the world, with the European Union and other neighboring countries like Malta, once again to be a trade partner when it comes to medical issues, security, knowing who is leaving the country, and therefore tackle with us issue of migration, so on and so forth.
Thank you. Before I open it up, one more question. You did mention terror finance. Yep, thank you. And can you provide us with some insight on Malta's role in this issue? It's one of the most difficult elements of counterterrorism, is trying to stop that flow of money through both formal and informal banking channels. Can you talk a little bit about that from Malta's perspective or from the EU perspective? You raised it briefly and said that there was more to say.
Well, yes, it's we are facing a new and complex security threats originating also from our immediate neighborhood, and we believe that this requires an effective and timely European response, and that is why we will give the due importance to those dossiers which are already on the table, particular proposals facilitating exchange of criminal records of non-EU citizens in the EU. Our objective as a presidency on this particular proposal is to reach the general approach within the Council, and therefore having the same achievement on the proposal of the alphanumeric data. We also would like to close the revision of the 4th Anti-Money Laundering Directive. However, at the same time, the College of Commissioners already adopted the 5th revision of the Anti-Money Laundering Directive, which entails some also controversial issues. Our presidency will also try to conclude negotiations with the European Parliament and adopt proposals in order to establish the European Public Prosecutor's Office, and also the regulation on the EU Agency for the Criminal Justice Cooperation. At the same time, it's also important to note that the Commission will come up, most probably it will be on the 16th of November, with the terrorist financing package. Basically, it has 3 main objectives: to harmonize the money laundering, criminal offense and sanctions, combating fraud and counterfeiting on non-cash payments, and also to strengthen the mutual recognition of criminal assets freezing and also the confiscation orders. I also referred already to the 5th revision of the anti-money laundering in this regard. So this terrorist financing package will be published by the Commission later on this year, and therefore all the negotiations, all the legislative process will initiate under our presidency of the Council, and of course we will do our utmost to initiate the discussions. It's not easy to set targets on the progress we can register for the time being. We don't know yet what will be in the proposal. However, we will definitely push forward this particular area, mainly because if we want to send once again the message to our citizens that the European Union and the EU 27 project is still relevant for them, we have to give them relevant answers. And definitely one of the questions our citizens are asking today, why we are no longer feeling safe to travel to Paris, to travel to Rome, to travel to London, so on and so forth. And speeding up on these particular dossiers is a must for our union.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. Okay, if you could. I'm not sure why that's happening.
Thank you. Irina Gelovska, Macedonian TV. Irina Gelovska, Macedonian TV. I'm correspondent here in DC. So I'm wondering whether one thing will continue during the presidency of Malta with the European Union. Macedonia was a country where in the last 2 years, so 1 million migrants passed. As well, you know that Macedonian president is calling for 2 years to the European Commission to share intelligence information with the Macedonian security agencies on migrants. You know that 2 of the attackers in Paris passed through Macedonia, but we didn't stop them because we didn't know that they are nothing but migrants. So will this continue during the presidency of Malta with the European Union?
Okay, so we know not more than others, but we experienced the challenge of migration for several years on our own, and we know how frustrating it is to be left alone in dealing with this issue. Also because it is also related to a core value of the European Union. It's about solidarity, and solidarity it's also entrenched in the treaties, and that is why also we do not understand what some people would like to mean when we're referring to flexible solidarity, so on and so forth. I will not comment on the particular case of Macedonia. I will definitely reiterate what I said in my introduction. That is, we have a migration agenda. We have several dossiers on the table. We will be trying to push as much as possible legislation to have fair burden sharing, to have a better management for migration policies inside the EU, but also externally with third countries, and of course also in this particular case. We know that the EU-Turkey deal was a good start. We know also that our citizens want to see more progress. They want that our leaders not only agree on a way forward, agree on an action plan, like they did in Valletta on the EU-Africa Summit back in November 2015, but also implement it. And that is why in January we will call a seniors official meeting in Valletta to make a follow-up of the Valletta action plan, of what has been agreed there, to take a stock of the situation, and also to continue examining and work on how this impinges on third countries, like in this scenario. Of course, it is a very sensitive issue, which also gave rise to some populist politicians to gain ground in various countries. And this is something which definitely we do not support. It is also attacking our principles fundamentally, and continuing the dialogue we opened in the past years is the only solution in order to show also our humanitarian side, especially with migrants escaping wars and persecution. We do appreciate that some migrants are economic migrants. They just want to have a better life somewhere else in Europe. It's good to know that Europe still can attract the interest of others. But however, it's clear that they have to follow the legal channels, and therefore we are very hard on the forced and voluntary returns for those non-eligible to stay within the Union. But at the same time, we have to give protection to those escaping wars and terrors.
Let me note before the next question that is a remarkably progressive and forward-looking perspective from a country that is 40 minutes from Libya and not 4,000 miles from the battlefield. That's pretty remarkable. Harlan, did you ever hear that? Yeah. Dr. Harlan Ullman.
I apologize, I've had to leave earlier. Thank you for coming and thank you for your comments. I would assert that a bigger threat than Libya is Brexit. And I wondered if you might focus a little bit more on Brexit. We're seeing coming out of the EU issues about hard landings. The immediate catastrophe is that Marmite is no longer cost-effective and cheap in Britain, which is only a harbinger of future things to come. But I'd be grateful if you might be able to expand a bit on how you see Brexit working out, what happens when Article 50 is taken by the Brits, and how you see this unfolding over the next year or two.
Well, that is what everyone is talking about, and it's interesting to know that we are legally separating from the United Kingdom for the second time in 60 years, and it's sad. It's sad to see the United Kingdom leave the Union. Around the table in the Council of Ministers, the UK we had very much similarities with them, and therefore it will be interesting to see how we will counterbalance other ideological statements and political decisions which other member states will push forward. The irony of all this is that some people are still trying to justify why the UK voted so, and that is something which we do not share. We are disappointed, but at the same time we fully respect that democratical decision, and that democratical decision, I believe, will be followed, and hence the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom will trigger Article 50. She said that she will do so in the first 3 months of next year. Once again, that means it will be during our presidency. And it's also important to note that following the Bratislava summit, the Council, the European Council President, together with our Prime Minister, announced that we will have another summit without the UK on the 3rd of February. Now, I of course do appreciate the different statements of hard and soft Brexit, and underlining the importance not to decouple the 4 freedoms in order to secure access to the single market. And of course, the 27 member states will definitely be strongly united on that one. At the same time, we have to ensure that there is a fair deal with the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is an integral part of the continent. It is for many countries, for many member states, a long-standing partner with economical, historical, and social ties. Our young generation still wants to study, live, and work in London and other UK cities, and therefore the deal must be a fair one. Our Prime Minister always refers to these negotiations by stating that it should be a fair deal, but an inferior one to membership, because if such deal can be an even better one, then of course we will just be asking who is next to leave, and that is something we do not want to. So that's a fine line, which will definitely take several years to negotiate. We already know that the Commission and Parliament appointed their special negotiators, former Commissioner Barnier and former Prime Minister Verhofstadt for the respective institutions. At the same time, the European Council will have 27 negotiators, 27 heads of government. And hopefully in Malta on the 3rd of February, we will have that discussion amongst 27 member states, what sort of EU 27 we would like to see, and also what sort of relationship we will have with the United Kingdom. Let's also not forget that other countries do have a relationship with the Union, some of them also up for renewal or reviewing that relationship. For instance, Switzerland. So all these things should be kept in mind when negotiating with the UK. We also have to keep in mind what the Union gave to the UK back in February 2016, hence the package that the UK citizens voted upon. And that was, in our opinion, a very good deal, which democratically they decided to reject. When Prime Minister May will trigger Article 50, then it will be up to the European Council to follow up that and set a very clear mandate to the European Commission to start and initiate the negotiations. We are also saying as a Malta that the European Parliament should be involved at early stages. The European Parliament is an important institution which also needs to endorse an exit deal, and therefore let's have them on board as soon as possible, also in order to ensure endorsement later on in the day when those negotiations mature. At the same time, together with the Italians, we were already, we are preparing to celebrate, forward-looking, the 60th anniversary since the Rome Treaty. This will coincide on the 25th of March, and therefore it's quite a pretty coincidence that of course by the time we should have Article 50 triggered by the UK, or last remaining 5 days according to the political statement that Prime Minister May did in the past weeks. So how this will affect also our presidency? It will affect our presidency, especially when communicating our job to the citizens, because Brexit will overshadow all this work in the political and public domain. And it's also important for us to remain focused, to remain committed to legislate for more economic and social reforms in Europe, giving more answers when it comes to terrorism, migration, so on and so forth. It will be also interesting the modus operandi, whether the UK will still be in the room or not, and at the same time negotiating upon legislation which eventually they will start to unwind as well. So these are the realities we are living today with, and I think on both sides, the European Union and the UK, we are at a learning curve. I think nobody expected that this article will ever be invoked, and yet here we are. The most important thing for me as a politician is to try and understand why the United Kingdom citizens decided to vote so, and how we can avoid another exit, because we want a union which continue to grow rather than continue to shrink. And that is why I personally welcome, for instance, the rejection of the referendum which took place in Hungary, amongst other developments we had in some member states.
Could I follow up? It strikes me that if a vote were taken today, the Brits would vote to remain. Theresa May is not elected. A majority of members of the House of Commons are for remain. And you will see that the High Court today received a suit which argues not whether it's going to be remain or leave, but to involve Parliament in the terms of how they extricate themselves. Supposing the Brits reverse themselves, I think that no matter what Theresa May has said, I don't think that's out of the question. How would that affect how would that affect your own thinking if the Brits decided, wait a second, we've made a mistake and we don't want to retract? Would that give grounds perhaps for further reform that David Cameron was not able to gain from Brussels? Or would you just be stuck with an intractable problem of somebody who want to go out now wants to get back in, and how you deal with that is just going to be even more problematic?
Well, I cannot see how the House of Commons decides to ignore millions of people who decided to vote so in a democratic and fair electoral process, and therefore it's very unlikely that I mean, otherwise we would be here discussing whether democracy is still the best way how to elect government and how to elect presidents and so on and so forth. So, but legally speaking, there's no Brexit until Article 50 is invoked, and this is something which the Brits needs to decide themselves. Although the Prime Minister May already pronounced herself on suggestions that you are referring to. And of course, I mean, in my opinion, it's only fair to respect a democratic decision taken by millions of people.
Be prepared to be surprised.
Yeah.
Definitely our presidency will be over then. It will not be in the next 6 months.
Hi, Hunter Watts from USAID. One of the issues that the development community is tracking with respect to Libya is smuggling of illicit contraband, oil, arms. By some unclassified estimates, I think 25% of the oil leaving the country right now is stolen. Kind of in an order of priority for the EU and for Malta specifically, where does counter-smuggling fit into your orientation towards Libya? Thank you.
Well, of course. I mean, this is what you have when there's no authorities, where there's no effective government. It's totally a stateless country, and that is why everybody, especially the immediate neighbors, are worried. Of course, oil and all the other goods you refer to are of a particular issue. However, it's even more worrying the fact that we have human beings being negotiated and traded in Africa. That is why also in the migration agenda there are several proposals and legislative dossiers aimed at addressing this issue. That is why the migration compacts we are following up after the June European Council decision. And that is why, I mean, we are optimistic that in some member states, some third countries, sorry, the Union is noticing progress, but not in Libya. I mean, I already referred to Mali, I already referred to Niger, where some of these actions are even legal ones. I mean, it's unheard of. However, something which definitely helps in this regards, in our opinion, is the fact that now the European Union will also invest more money in Africa through the financial instruments, the EFSI, the so-called Juncker plan, when it comes to more development in Africa and assisting these countries to attract foreign direct investments for particular projects in order to replace these illegal economical activities with legal and fruitful ones. But of course, it remains an issue which the Libyan authorities needs to tackle. We will definitely be very supportive in assisting them. However, for the time being, we do not see that it's the right time yet to be in Libya and to discuss on such particular issues.
Side of the room. Okay, go ahead.
Thanks. Brett Sudetic with LMI Consulting. I was hoping, Doctor, and thank you, gentlemen, that you could discuss a bit the re-engagement, perhaps, of Maltese private sector companies. I know there's airlines that are still, take people to Matiga Airport and whatnot, perhaps other areas. But could you discuss or talk to Maltese private sector re-engagement with Tripoli and really in Libya in general, as well as diplomatic relations? Where are diplomatic relations with, what's sort of the status of diplomatic relations with Libya, view towards sort of the GNA, the East, etc.? Thank you.
Oh, I think we kept a very open relationship with when it comes to the diplomatic world, and we witnessed several prime ministers which took office since the crisis meeting and visiting Malta. However, we are not there yet. We gave our full support, and we are continuing to do so to the UN Special Envoy. Now Mr. Kobler, I mean, he's doing a sterling job there. At the same time, we know that the international community can do more. Can do more in assisting the Libyan factions to come together and stabilize the political situation. With regards to the trade and entrepreneurial relations with Libya, our businessmen in Malta, they always had a very good feat in Libya, and something which we will definitely continue to support. However, I mean, the right ingredients, again, they are not there at the moment. Most of them are still visiting and doing their homework on the ground. Also because when everything, hopefully one day, the sooner the better, is back to normal. I mean, then everybody can go and do business in Libya. So these are actually this is actually the right time for people willing to yet again reach out to the Libyans in order to establish or reconnect with them for future trades. Lately, as I told you, we had a delegation, a business delegation, made up of German and Libyan companies. Of course, they are worried, they are concerned. People who invested millions of euros in Libya, and yet they cannot go back to their companies, their infrastructural assets they have, but they are hopeful. They are hopeful because this land is actually full of opportunities, full of resources, and I'm pretty sure that there will be once again a positive scenario where the Europeans and also not only Europeans but beyond our continent will be back on track. But it's really frustrating not to have anyone on the other side to talk to, and someone who can respect and implement a deal, not because they do not want to, but because there's no legitimate and effective authorities at the moment.
Russian Embassy, Roman Shevchenko. As Malta closer to western part of Libya, my question is about security situation in Tripoli. Do you know whether Prime Minister of Libya, Sarraj, is still working on naval base?
I'm not aware of the details. No, I mean.
You have a very small population. It's 97% Catholic. Nonetheless, you are the closest EU state to Libya and very close to the adjacent battle spaces that we're concerned with. Has Malta seen any of its citizens join ISIS or Al-Qaeda or any other jihadi Salafi group coming back and forth, or at least just going to the battlefield?
No, not that we know. Not that we know.
Okay. Other questions?
Hi, good morning, and thank you for allowing us to attend here today. My name is Greg Jones. I'm with Jones Group International. My question is regarding the overall security state of Libya with General Haftar operating, quote, operating in the east, the neighboring countries, how they might be supporting him, and how he, and what your perspective is on how he might be able to be corralled inside, in with the GNA and the Presidential Council. Are you concerned with what he's doing? And some context is, the latest I heard was that he was actually allowing revenues from the oil fields that he's controlling to come back to Tripoli. Some might interpret that as a good gesture, that he's looking to potentially take steps towards some type of reconciliation with the GNA. Others might look at that as a way to kind of garner some more support from the Libyan citizens, thus putting himself in a more position of leverage to continue what he's been doing. As a neighbor of Libya, I'm curious how his actions are perceived by you, and if you think it's the right path or something that you're going to have to really watch carefully.
No, I will just reiterate that for us the GNA is to be viewed as the solely Libyan legitimate institution, and that the Libyan political agreement is the only legitimate framework to bring an end to this crisis in Libya.
Any other questions? Anyone from this side? Okay. Ambassador, any comments from you?
Well, a little comment just to put things a bit in perspective. I often am confronted with the relations of Malta and Libya. And the best way I found to explain these and to illustrate this is to think of California and Mexico. There is a certain organic interaction. Since time immemorial, this is Malta and Libya, so we feel their pain. And we are very much afraid of what they're passing through. Certainly, it's a country that does not deserve this, that has resources, and that we're very hopeful. And we work towards their stability. I'm also certain, and I think the Minister would agree with me, that at the right time, at the right opportunity, Malta will always come forward and put itself available for any progress in this direction. And maybe if the elements on the ground would be better by the time we have the presidency. I'm sure that we will utilize all the available energy and tools that we have to enable the progress of Libya. Another point I wanted to do is, and continue on what the Parliamentary Secretary said, is about the Maltese and the trade in Libya. Again, this is something which is organic. Since time immemorial, you see this interaction between the two countries. And I can say that the hotel industry in Malta, in Libya, Maltese have invested a lot in construction industry, in hospitals, healthcare, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot, and I'm sure that the Maltese businessmen are dying to return. But of course, for investments to flow back, you have to have the right ingredients and stability on the ground. And this is, I think, what we're all hoping for. At some point in time, however, investment and trade and the economy is going to be a very important element to start the cycle of the economy. And therefore, once this starts, it will get its critical mass and the momentum for stability to set its roots. And we all pray for that moment. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, folks? Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for bringing us this opportunity. Mr. Minister, thank you very much for your comments. Your nation has a tremendous responsibility ahead of it, only weeks away, with North Africa, with the Southern Neighborhood Policy, with Brexit, with ongoing counterterrorism challenges in the EU, and we wish you the best of luck and hope that you'll come back and tell us about it after 6 months is up. Thank you very much.